Hey, it's me again, author of The Lucky Lotus. And I have committed to this, committed to reading this book to anyone who wants to listen and then hear, my little commentary afterwards. And it has now become this is my 22nd day. So that's quite a milestone for me. Anyway, so today I am starting on page 46, and the chapter is called Daffodil. Take a deep squat with your feet to the outer edges of your mat. Place your hands straight in front of you and bring your knees into your armpits. Look forward as you come into an arm balance called crow. The insecurities of not being able to do what other yogis can do rise as I give up and look around the room to see everyone else upside down. I am different, just like always, the only Indian in the room, and I can't do yoga. This position zapped me with a deep emotional surge that reminded me of myself when I was on the verge of young adulthood. I was a victim to a man, a victim of depression and of self-loathing by the hand of a loved one. It was a beautiful spring day in late May. I stood outside after a Sunday short shift at the local hamburger stand in town in my greasy, smelly brown polyester uniform with bright orange and gold stripes down the front and a zipper the length of my body. I stood in the parking lot and fell into the dreamy green eyes of a 20-year-old boy. His wavy brownish blonde hair flipped at the neck under his red baseball cap. His wide almond-shaped eyes drew me in, and his charm had all the girls talking. His cheeks were slightly rosy, and he smiled a big smile that would warm even a cold, damp day in Corvallis. I was 17 and within days of graduation. Spring fever was bursting with Mama D's favorite flower, daffodils blooming at every turn. They brought with them a promise of new life, new beginnings, and a turn to adulthood. We talked for an hour or so before we heard a big boom. Later, we found out it was Mount St. Helens erupting. However, not knowing what it was at the time, we went on with our flirtatious dance. His charm and intelligence oozed, and I became enamored. As it came time for me to leave, he asked, "Would you like to come over later?" Without hesitation, I replied, "Sure." He was a regular customer. All of us who worked there knew him and looked forward to his kind, relaxed, and intelligent conversations. I quickly drove home, changed, and came back to meet him. Although it was a Sunday evening, I was not concerned about school because I was about to graduate from high school in a couple of weeks. I found his little apartment through the alley and knocked on his door nervously and excitedly. He answered and then opened the door. He invited me in. It was a downstairs studio apartment in an old house made into apartments just for college students. I walked in and saw a girl sitting on his bed. There was no couch, and the only place to sit was on the twin bed. We were introduced, and then she got up and nicely walked out as he ushered her through the door. The room reeked of marijuana. I knew that smell because I smoked pot as much as I possibly could. We talked for a while, and then he offered me a long hit, to which I happily obliged. I loved to smoke pot, even though it made me paranoid. We listened to Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers on his turntable. The stereo became louder and louder after each bong hit, and the walls of the house began to vibrate. We smiled through the puffs of smoke and began to connect over songs and smoke rings. He was cute, and I was interested. I left, and we began the courtship and dance of lust. He worked as a surveyor for the Forest Service in Oregon and made a decent living, but he wasn't in college, nor had he gone to college. That made me think twice about getting too serious. Mama D always said, "You are so smart that you need to marry a professional, a lawyer, doctor, or engineer who is bright, or you will become bored." Her words kept rewinding in my head, and my education snobbery was apparent against Ben. He was uneducated and not planning to go to college, even though he was very intelligent. I moved out of my house after graduation that summer and found myself stuck for 2 weeks between my rental and dorm without a place to live. I vowed I would never go back home no matter what. I was still 17 and about to begin college. Ben had now become my boyfriend over the summer. He heard my predicament and offered, "Why don't you stay with me?" It was a dumpy little rundown studio with a bathroom he shared with another tenant, but I figured it would be bearable for 2 weeks before I left to go live in the dorms. You know, I think about myself at 17, like, I did not even have the wherewithal or the ability to understand that I was putting myself in a horrible situation. You know, I hardly knew this guy. Really, I mean, it was just over the summer. But, you know, I was searching for connection and love so much, even as a teenager, because I was lacking so much of it at home, that I was willing to put myself into situations that probably weren't the best for me, just to maybe possibly find some semblance of love on a daily basis, you know, because I just didn't feel it from my family. I did from my dad, but that was it. And so I think, you know, I think of a 17-year-old making a decision to just, I'm never going back home, no matter what. I'd rather live with this boy that I barely know than to go back home. It just tells you a lot about what my home life was and how unbearable it was. And, you know, now I look back and I just go, oh my God, my parents must have just been like, what in the world is she doing at 17 living with this kid? I think my mom probably, you know, used education to tell me to make, you know, better choices. But I think deep down she knew he wasn't a great person. And she knew there was something about him that I didn't know. And sometimes our parents, even if they're not our biological parents, they tend to know things about us that we don't even know about ourselves until we're a lot older. And I think she knew what I needed more than I knew myself. And it wasn't someone like him. But she didn't ever want to tell me who I should and shouldn't date. So I think in a way that was kind of not a good thing, that she wasn't willing to be that authentic with me or that open with me, but we just didn't have that type of relationship. So anyway, I will continue with this chapter tomorrow. And I hope you have a great night or a great day wherever you are. And once again, thank you so much for following me and listening. I really do appreciate you.